Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar this morning. We'll get started at 8:35. We're going to give folks some time to populate the meeting or the webinar. It's 8:31 right now, and my name is Kristen Evel. I'm the Cannabis Department Director, and I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, but I will be back at 8:35 to get us started. Good morning, everyone. It's 8:34. We'll go ahead and prepare to get ourselves started here. Thanks so much for joining us for the Cannabis Department's weekly meeting. My name is Kristen Evel. I'm the Cannabis Department Director. With us today, assisting on facilitating this meeting, we have Nina Holloway. So thanks so much, Nina, for joining us and helping us get the meeting going and streamed and moving forward. Okay, well, without further ado, let's see if we can make this slideshow work here. There we go. We're going to spend most of our time today having discussion about the portal application system. The 30-day corrections portal opens on Monday, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to really focus on that today. So we've waited through our settling period. I have a couple additional updates, and then we'll move to discussing the portal, and then we'll have some time for discussion of future agenda items. Quick round of updates. We have been working diligently here in the department, working with the state and with county council and stakeholders to draft updates for the LEAP program manual. We plan to bring those updates forward on April 5th, so we'll have some updates for the public on April 5th. We have reestablished front counter hours here at 579 Low Gap, which is where the Cannabis Department is located on the main administration campus. Our counter hours are now Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're closed daily for lunch. So don't come in from noon to 1 because no one will be here to help you. So sorry, but we are taking lunch break from noon to 1. So if you can come in between 10 and 4 and you need counter assistance, That's where we'll be. We don't have enough planners to have an assigned planner of the day currently. I only have one trained planner in the office and then a second planner who's still in training. And then my third planner, or the department's third planner at this time, is working remotely. So the counter is not really suitable to come in and meet with a planner and ask a bunch of questions. But we did update our fee sheet last summer. When we updated our fees, we did include a pre-application meeting, and that has been updated on the fee sheet. The link is here in the presentation, so you'll have access to it later. It's not working for me right now, but I can tell you if you go to the website and then down to the forms and resources page, there is, I think, a cannabis program fee sheet. And this has the fee schedules for all of the fees that are currently associated with the cannabis program. So you'll be able to find that information here on the website, as mentioned just a moment ago. And that's it for updates. We don't have a lot of department updates. We do want to make sure folks know how to participate in today's meeting. I see some of you have found the Q&A box already. So good morning to all of you. Thanks so much for joining us. So the Q&A chat feature is going to be located in your features bar. The features bar is generally either at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen. And in order to activate the Q&A chat feature, you want to just click on the icon that says Q&A under it, and that will pop open a separate window. And then you can go ahead and type in your questions or your comments. Folks should know that only panelists, so right now only Nina and I, are going to see questions and comments that come in through that Q&A feature. We will have a lot of time for discussion today, so we'll try to get through the questions that come into the Q&A feature to the best of our ability. And we will also take verbal comments. So when we get into a public comment or Q&A session, if you would like to verbally comment, you can raise your hand, which is also located in the features bar. It's just a little hand symbol. If you click on that, it raises your hand. If you click on it again, it will lower your hand. Again, that features bar is either at the top or the bottom of your screen. But if you're calling in from a phone today and you're not using the Zoom app, you can raise your hand by using the *9 feature. *9 will raise your hand, *9 will lower your hand. And then also there's a mute and unmute feature. If you're on the Zoom device, if you look at the picture of yourself or the icon that has your name in it, your mute and unmute button is on the upper right-hand side of your picture box. If you are calling in from a phone, *6 will mute and unmute you. And then, of course, we'll make sure that time is provided for public comment. And when we get into the public comments, we'll remind people about how to use these features. I do want to say that the focus of this meeting, as mentioned in the agenda, is going to be the portal. So I'm seeing some questions come in about topics that are not portal related. We will possibly get to answering those questions, but we are planning to focus on the portal today. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware that because that's our primary focus, we're going to take portal questions first. We're going to really focus on those. Upcoming important dates. March 28th is Monday, and the portal will open on Monday at 12:01 a.m. It will close 30 days later on April 28th at 11:59 p.m. So it's a 30-day corrections portal timeline. On April 1st, April 8th, and April 15th, we'll be having our weekly public meetings. Oh, and I really apologize. For some reason, I don't have the April LEAP meeting on here, which is kind of a blow it. So let me just look at my calendar and I'll tell you what that date is in April. The third Wednesday of April is 4/20. So on April 20th, we'll be having our monthly LEAP meeting, and because it's a Wednesday meeting, that meeting will be from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. and I'll make sure we get that onto our list for next week and make sure that it's on our website. All of you should be aware that we do have a new web page up, the 2022 Cannabis Department events page. I think William went over this last week with folks. I'll pop it open in a minute here. I also just want to make sure folks are aware that on April 19th, the public comment period for the draft permanent regulatory packet that DCC released closes. And they'll be having a final public hearing that day, during which you can provide public comment on those regulations, those draft regulations. So April 19th marks the end of the 45-day public comment period for DCC regulations. That public comment period is currently open. So going back to the website, in the sidebar here of the Cannabis Program page, you'll see the 2022 Cannabis Department page. Nina primarily has been helping keep this up to date. So I really thank Nina for this. But what we've been doing is putting the video of each meeting we have and then the slides that appear on the screen and are associated with that video. We've been posting them as soon as they become available after the meeting. Sometimes we get the slides up before the meeting. And then we've been posting all upcoming events and meetings. We do have the portal opening on here and the portal closing. And then I do believe, I missed the D on this one. I do have the April 19th Department of Cannabis Control meeting up here. So if you do need additional information, you can click right through to the rulemaking page to get more information. And we'll get the LEAP meeting up here. My apologies for not having that up yet. That's it for important dates right now. But the website, in addition to having the dates and the information, will also has the login for every one of these meetings and all upcoming meetings, including LEAP meetings. So you can always go to that page. It is mobile device friendly. You can join the webinar from there, or you can just click dial in. So that's what we've got going on. All right, so portal application system. We do have a few folks who have made changes to potentially their agent and or the person that they were working with on their original portal submission. If for any reason you do not have access to your original portal login, please do go to the portal application system webpage. In the section of the webpage that says 30-day corrections portal access is this link right here. This link will allow you to enter the portal once it's live, and you can enter it now if you need to set up a new user account. So if for some reason you no longer have access to the user account that you set up or that your agent set up, right, for your original portal submission between August and November of 2021, you need to go in and create a new user account. You can do that right now, as I mentioned. And when you do that, after you create the account, you need to send us that account information. We don't need the password, but we do need to know the AG number, the user account email, the applicant email, and if there's an agent associated with that application, the agent's email. This will give us the ability to identify which account we should open for you to utilize, right? So when you go in and you create a new account, it doesn't override a previous account. It actually creates a duplicative account for that AG number. So we do have some folks who have duplicative accounts because they've already set up accounts. Staff has been calling those folks to make sure that we know which account they're planning to use when they do their corrections. So if you make a change to your account, and then please do notify us so that we can let information services know which account to make sure is open for you to do your corrections. Okay, there's some great resources on the website. So the two videos that we released or put together in public information meetings in July of 2021 are still up on the website. They're still really helpful for folks. So if you have any questions about how to use, how to fill out the questionnaire page, how to enter the portal, how to manage the numbers, right? So in the questionnaire page, all of that information is found in these videos. These videos are the same. The only real difference is that they're about 7 days apart. One of them, I have a cold, the other one I don't. So, but the information is the same. Some of the questions may vary, so there might be some differences in that regard, but both videos provide you a tour of setting up your user account, entering into the portal, working through an application, how to access from the inside of the portal the questionnaire page. Anytime you can flip between questionnaire and upload page, how to access the FAQ section from inside the portal, etc. So if you have questions about how to manage the portal platform itself, please do reference the videos. We also did put up a new portal resubmission checklist. We had a chance to walk through that and have some conversation about it on a previous meeting, but we can also answer questions and have discussion about it today if folks would like. We did our best to try to reconcile the eligible, ineligible, complete, in good standing. So a master portal recommendation list. We posted that on the website, I want to say last week. We do know that there's a few discrepancies. We'll probably be updating that again, but if you have questions about what you're seeing on that list, please do email cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org. Unfortunately, there's no real way for the portal to talk to our systems about who's complete and incomplete, who's eligible and who's ineligible. So the creation of the portal recommendation list is a lot of manual copying and pasting and aligning. And in doing so, even though we've checked and double checked with multiple staff persons, wrangling 800, the status of 800, some permit applications does pose challenges. And so please, if you do have questions, do email cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org. Okay, with that said, that is about all I have for presentation today. I know folks have been asking for plenty of time for Q&A, so here we are this morning with plenty of time for Q&A. We are going to make sure that we have at least 15 minutes at the end of this meeting for discussion, question, conversation about future agenda items. So we will not use the entirety of the remainder of the meeting to discuss the portal, but we still have almost an hour for portal discussion. Okay, I'm going to start with a couple questions that I can see in the Q&A feature. I do want to encourage those of you who would like to ask a question to raise your hand if you'd like to verbally ask a question. Again, the raise hand feature can be found in your toolbar, either at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen. It is a little hand icon. If you click on it, it will raise your hand. If you click on it again, it will lower your hand. If you're calling in from a phone, if you used a dial-in feature to enter the meeting this morning, you can raise your hand by using the *9 feature. So please, folks interested in making a comment or asking a question verbally, please do raise your hand and we'll kind of mix and match between Q&A that's coming through the chat feature and verbal comments. So with that said, I'm going to go to, excuse me, I apologize, I have a frog in my throat. So a couple questions that have come up in the chat feature. We have an attendee who would like me to explain what ineligible means for folks who are on the portal resubmission list. So if your AG number says that it's ineligible for the portal, that's really what it means. So let's go ahead and let's open the list and just take a look at it. So so folks can kind of visually follow along. I'm a pretty visual learner, so it's usually helpful for me to see kind of what it is that the question is about. The portal recommendation list, we used these status language that says eligible portal, meaning folks AG 2017-0015 is eligible for the portal. We kept the same in good standing status for those of you who completed your applications before the portal opened and were not sent to the portal. We updated some statuses to issued because we had some folks who were in good standing that ended up with issued permits over the course of the portal. And then we have some folks who are ineligible. So they were assigned to the portal and are for one reason or another ineligible to conduct corrections through the corrections portal. Reasons why folks may be ineligible to conduct corrections through the portal could be that they were slated for the portal and never showed up to participate in the portal. That's one reason. We do have a few folks that are slated for denial. So once the portal opens, we'll be working through getting those denials out. We have folks that still have unresolved vegetation modification that we're reviewing and working with applicants to try to resolve if it's resolvable. Those folks are also ineligible for the portal. If you think you should be eligible and you're for some reason not, please do email us. If there's a discrepancy in what you believe your status is for your AG number, please do email us. This is a bit of a beast to wrangle, getting all of these into these tables. It is a major feat of copying and pasting and re-reviewing each other's work. So I am certain that there are some human errors that have occurred here. So please do let us know if you have questions, and you can let us know by emailing cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org. Okay, so see here. Oh, Nina put that question in the answered question, it looks like. Okay, awesome. I'm like, where did it go? Is the portal still limited to one submission? Yeah, it is. So we are very limited in planning staff. So while the portal is open, we will not be reviewing submissions to the portal. We just really don't have the time or the bandwidth to manage that. Folks have corrections lists. I know that there's some questions about inconsistency, and for the individual who's asking this question, I'll get an email out to you this afternoon. I did read your email and have reviewed your materials, so I'll respond to you this afternoon specifically. I'm not going to do it here online or during the webinar, but just so everyone knows, when the portal opens, right, it's going to be open for 30 days unless as an applicant or the agent entering information into that portal, you seal that application by hitting the final submission button on the very last page and sending the materials off to the department. Once you submit the materials to the department, the portal won't be reopened. So really, please do, we want to emphasize the need to practice file management. If you have any questions while you're in the portal, refer to the Q&A page, please, and or email cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org. But, you know, we're opening the portal so folks can make those corrections. And then once you seal your responses, those questions, or once you seal those responses, you will not be able to re-enter the portal. We have done away with registrations. So if you are interested in attending any of our meetings, whether it's a weekly meeting, monthly LEAP meeting, or any other meeting that comes up, we'll be posting those meetings on the 2022 events page. The login information will be there if you want to join via the Zoom platform. The call-in information will also be there if you prefer or need to dial into the meeting. We will not be doing registrations anymore. Registrations have been challenging for a number of members of the public as well as board members, and so we're just doing away with registering for meetings. So hopefully that continues to go well, and we can go from there. Okay, so great questions here. I want to run through these, and I do see that we have a hand raised, so give us a moment and we'll come to Brandy Moulton, who is has her hand raised. So give us just a minute here. So what is the best approach for the green checks with notes? Great question. Folks, listen, your green checks are accepted materials. The notes are for the planners because as these materials come through, they don't get directed to the same planner because we have no way of tracking in our portal system at this point who did initial review, who did secondary review. That information is captured on the checklist, but we don't have any electronic way to note that so that we can send stuff back to the same person. So those are planner notes. What we're asking for in the portal is to only submit corrections for materials that have red X's related to them. Now, this is a little tricky and it's not an absolute because it's very possible that if you have a green check, say on a site plan, but a red check on your structures list because you have more structures on your structures list than show on your site plan, that maybe the issue isn't the structures list, maybe it's that the site plan fails to show that extra structure, right? So you may have to remedy the deficiency in one or more places based on what the deficiency is, but we're really looking for the red X's. Those are the deficiencies. That's what we're looking for the correction on. So if you have comments in associated with a green check, those are, don't worry about those. Those are comments that when the application is complete and the application is then assigned to a planner for final review, those notes are there for the final review planner to work with the applicant and or the agent to resolve. So I hope that that helps clarify. For a green check with notes that relates to a permit type and a potential change of permit type, please confirm that a new application should not be submitted via the portal. I don't think a new application is necessary via the portal unless the applicant is making changes that we need to be notified of. So unfortunately, folks keep changing their application packets. We've had a number of folks who completed their application through the portal that are now like, oh, I have a new site plan and structures list and I want to change what I'm doing. You know, we can't stop you from doing that necessarily. You really aren't supposed to do any changes to your site without asking permission first. I know that that's not the way it's been working for a number of years. But the thing that I do want to emphasize about the constant barrage of changes to cultivation sites is that we can't process, like every time there's changes about the cultivation type, cultivation size, site plan, it takes the plan review back to the beginning pretty much. So when you complete your application, it'd be really great to have that application be complete so that when we get staffed up and we're moving forward with doing these reviews, we aren't reviewing something and then changes 2 weeks later, then we're re-reviewing it and then things change again. It's really going to be beneficial for meeting the state's timeline requirements to have complete applications remain complete and not have a constant barrage of changes being conducted. So I think I got to those questions. I'm going to go ahead and put the timer up, and then I'm going to go ahead and let Ms. Moulton start her comment, ask her questions. Brandy, you should have the floor.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. So a few minutes ago, you referenced human error on whether that was applicant or staff's part. And this is a totally viable concern. And I'm just wondering how, given the human error that's occurred and has the potential to continue occurring, how one submission to the portal is going to be grounds for denial. And then also, you know, I would request that applicants also be given that same level of understanding with human error for this program that's been going for 4 years, and the target has moved seemingly every week. So I just wanted to make that comment and ask if that was going to be taken into consideration with this one submission process. Thank you.
We will be reviewing the materials that are submitted through the portal. There will be denials for folks who don't complete through the portal. Our primary concerns about applicants' viability to move forward is compliance related. So we'll be reviewing applications as they come through, or once the portal closes, I should say, because that's a more accurate statement. But we do need deficiencies to be corrected. And then we'll work with county council and outside counsel to determine where we're drawing the line, I imagine, for denials. I can say this, though, we're incredibly likely to deny if folks don't have state licenses. If you haven't applied, by the end of March, it's unlikely that you'll qualify for a provisional. Folks who have equity eligibility have a little longer on qualifying for a first-time provisional. But if you're not focused on getting your state license and you haven't had a state license and you don't have a state license when you come to this corrections portal, if you haven't applied, is what I should say, for a state license, that would be grounds for denial. Not being in compliance with the environmental permitting programs would be another ground for denial. Not having your original applicant, another ground for denial. And there are a number of them, but it's really important that we get these applications completed. And we do understand that human error is a reality because we don't have robots working on any of this. We have a few more questions or hands raised, so I'm going to go to Michael Katz before going to Ron Edwards. Michael, you should be able to unmute your device and start your comment.
Good morning. Yes, thanks so much for holding these meetings. The board has supervisors and the ad hoc have repeatedly made comments that it is their direction and goal to see as many people who are working to get through this process get through it as possible. And I'm wondering how you feel that the one submission procedure that you are putting in place, understanding the human errors that were just discussed, aligns with the board direction of helping people get through the program. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. We can't write these applications for folks. We've put up checklists, we've held meetings, we've provided explanation, we've provided guidance, we've put up videos. The application checklist and the materials required are very similar to what's required, if not identical to what's required for the state license, depending on what the item is. And we were directed originally to deny folks who didn't complete their applications through the portal that we held August through November. So I think it fully does align to ask people to make their corrections. Most folks don't have a ton of questions, although there are folks who waited until towards the very end of the portal's timeline to submit anything, who have, in many cases, far more corrections to make. But this is not a perpetual application program. And if we're going to be able to focus, our staff is going to have time to focus on addressing complete applications, renewals, Appendix Gs, and the other work that folks need us to conduct with them. We're going to have to get through this constant incomplete application processing period where we have been kind of stuck in purgatory for almost a year now. It's been about 9 months. So, please do make the corrections, and we will address what's put into the portal when the portal closes. I'm going to reset the timer. I'm going to go to Ron Edwards, and then after Ron, we'll hear from Chantal. Ron, you should be able to go ahead and unmute your device and start your comment.
Good morning. Thank you for opening the meetings. It's been rather frustrating having to pre-register, so I really want to thank you for doing that. As far as changes go, I think that I'm going to ask that you have a little more understanding as farmers are making decisions on what the market is going to be next year and might want to reduce size. Also, forbearance ends on the 1st, and we're in tax season, and equity grant money hasn't come in. So if somebody was planning on having that grant money to have storage already, they might need to make changes because that equity grant money hasn't come into their farm. So if you could work with the individual applicant to understand those changes as opposed to just saying we're not taking changes. Thank you.
Yeah, so to clarify, I never said that we aren't taking changes. As folks change their application, if we're reviewing your application and you start making changes, the review timeline is lengthened. We need complete applications so that we can conduct a final review. So, folks complete applications with us and then they're like, oh, we're changing this, that, and the other, and all this other stuff. We're now a different type. We're now a different size. We're expanding. We're building this, that, and the other. I understand that folks want to do development, but it is incredibly challenging to the timeline of processing permits. That's my point, right? So changes create delays in processing. That's what I want to emphasize here. Our next speaker will be Chantal, and then we'll go to Kevin Bush. Chantal, you should be able to go ahead and unmute your device.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll echo everybody else's comments. Thanks for having these meetings. We're getting in a good flow with them now. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, but here we are again. I have two questions. One is really a request. If you could please review in detail the process from when a submission is submitted via the portal all the way through to when the final review will be happening and how those green checks with notes will be addressed, and explicit detail, please, in lengths of time and approximations of timing. And my second question has to do, again, back to the green checks with notes. When the note from the planner review implied that potentially there should be a license type change, that's my question that I keep asking about, is how, if the planner comment triggers a change, not the applicant initiating the change, but the planner comment is saying, hey, I think you should go this direction instead of that direction. How should that be addressed? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with your reference to the planner recommending on a green check that someone should change their license type. I can't answer that without looking at the specific situation, so I'm not going to even try to comment on that. Review timing, I can't give you lengths of time and I can't give you a timeline. Why? We have 3 planners. 2 of them are trained. I have 800 applications in the department here for us to review, plus Appendix Gs, plus renewals, plus modifications, plus transfers, plus. So we will be flying an RFQ starting on Monday, looking for, it's a request for qualifications for contract planners. That RFQ will fly for 30 days, so it's going to fly while the portal is open. Once the portal closes, it will take us some time to review those submissions, and then we'll have to go to the board to enter into contracts. We do plan on bringing on what I like to think of as a small army of contract planners to assist us in conducting reviews of complete applications, renewals, and Appendix G so that we can meet state timelines and deadlines. We also are just about done interviewing the interviewing process for planners here in the department. While we have 3 planners, we have an allocation for about 11 planners, I want to say. We are bringing on an additional, we have a new planner tech starting soon. And then we do have a cartographer planner position that we filled. So a lot of our review timing is going to be specifically dependent on getting staff in-house here. It's, we can only do so much with what we have currently. And that makes for some long and challenging timelines where we are. I wish I could say more about length of timing, but I am hopeful that we'll be fully staffed by June. That is what I'm hoping for. But, you know, that's yet to be seen. With that said, we'll go ahead and we will go to our next speaker. Our next speaker is going to be Kevin Bush, followed by Julia. Kevin, you should be able to go ahead and unmute your device and begin your comment. Let's see, Kevin, can you unmute your device? You do have permission to unmute and start your comment.
I'm sorry, Kristen, I must have pushed a button in my movements here. I didn't have a question.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and remove your permission to speak, and we'll just go to our next commenter, who is Julia. Julia, you should be able to unmute your device and start your comment.
Thank you, Kristen, and thanks for opening up the meetings, and thank you for having the meetings. 2 questions. Well, I think one's a comment. Following up on Brandy and Michael's comments, I think what they may be, I'm not speaking for them, but my inkling is that the concern lies in that there was an application that was complete originally and now isn't. And that there's even a possibility they could be eliminated 4 years later, and it creates grave concern and stress, particularly around the elimination perspective. So I think the real crux of the issue is these applications were originally deemed complete and now they aren't. And how did that happen? That's not my question. I just am trying to clarify something that might be helpful for everyone. My question lies in, I thought you had 40 to 50 applicants for planners, and you only have 3 planners with 1 planner tech and 1 cartographer. What about all the other applicants? Can't we hire them also? And in regard to that, and piggybacking off Chantel, can we get the specific process that you're going through now, but get a timeline once the portal closes? Thank you so much.
I am not familiar with any applications that were deemed complete and then suddenly determined not complete. So if someone is experiencing that and you want to email Cannabis Program about that, we would love to hear about that. The only applicant I'm familiar with that came through the portal that had a complete application that was then deemed not complete is an applicant who, after completing their portal application, wanted to make significant changes, and what we determined was the best way to make those changes was to have them submit those changes through the corrections portal. So then we took them off the complete list after having a conversation with them and their agent and moved them into the incomplete list so that they could make the changes we had discussed.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. So,
I'm talking about the original application 4 years ago that was deemed complete.
Oh, yes. So original applications 4 years ago that were deemed complete before state regulations were put in place and before the county actually realized what was going to be required pursuant to the ordinance to make sure that the applications that we approve are in alignment with what's required by the state. So those we cannot process or move a permit forward based on the original application material that was gathered by Department of Agriculture. It doesn't give us the information we need to move forward with processing an application for issuance today. So yeah, I don't have much more to say about that. Applications for planners. So we ran a number of planner position lists. We ran Planner Tech 1, Planner Tech 2, Planner 1, and Planner 2 lists, and Planner Cartographer lists. Each one of those lists are their own individual lists. When through a county hiring system, when you have an open recruitment list, you cannot make a job offer to anyone on that list unless you're ready to respond to everyone on that list and then close that list. So The reason why we were able to hire a planner cartographer sooner than planner ones and planner twos and planner techs and a planner tech level 2 first is because there were limited folks on those lists. So we were able to go ahead and make those offers, do those hirings of the planner tech 2 and the planner cartographer while we still have these other lists open. The planner 1 list, we've also been kind of waiting for our planner 2 list. Planner techs, planner 1s, and planner 2s are all in the same position pool, so to speak, meaning that they can fill our allocation for planners. So until we look at the planner 2 list, because we'd also like to have some more advanced planners on our team, we haven't been confident in closing the planner tech and the planner 1 list. So we're just about ready to make offers on planner 1 and planner tech, but some of it is also dependent on understanding what is in the application pool for planner 2 list, which we just received. So we will be going back and doing job offers in those pools, but it's kind of this system of lists that open and close that we're trying to juggle and manage. Our planner that is in training was hired last fall and started in November. So she was hired prior to this larger pool of continually having these lists open. So the timing is such that Diana joined us before we moved into this interview process that we're currently in right now. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and answer a few more questions that have come in via the Q&A feature. Do I have a bullfrog management plan for the frog in my throat? Other than tea and water? No, I don't. So there is someone who needs to remove a source of cannabis water that has been deemed inappropriate, but the site plan, structures list, cultivation and operations plan have all been deemed complete. You know, if you need to remove the water source, you probably need to, you do need to remove it from all of those areas where it's listed. If you're removing a water source, it's not going to trigger a modification. So you should just remove the water source. And really it's removing the status of the water source. So if the water source is not deemed appropriate for cannabis, it's really a relabeling of what it is used for, right? So maybe it's just used for supplemental use or for fire prevention or for wildlife purposes, for recreation. I'm not sure what the water source is exactly, but it is important that the change to the classification or the use of the water source is reflected in all areas of the application material where we ask about water. So you would want to change it in all of those places. And that is one of those situations where you may need to change materials that have been determined complete so that you can manage addressing the water source that you will not be using for cannabis. I hope that helps answer the question. You can email us if you have further questions. When will VegMod determinations be made and communicated to those that received letters? The vast majority of folks who's received VegMod letters did request extensions. Extensions were granted. We still have a few folks that have sent materials that we're working through and that we're potentially waiting for additional materials on. So we're working through those in a timely fashion. We did send out some notices to folks who had received VegMod letters, letting them know that they are eligible for the corrections portal, and made some correction recommendations regarding areas where veg modification did occur. If you sent in information but have not heard any response from planners about the information that you sent in, you can email us at cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org, and that should get forwarded then to the planner assigned to your VegMod review, and they will respond to you. So please do email us if you have questions on that. I'm not sure what kind of updates may be coming about the VegMod program in the future. We don't have any plans at this time to change the program. But if we do make changes to the program, we will definitely update the public via these meetings. And we are hoping to get a web page up. If someone had originally hired a consultant and they did not get the portal materials complete, how can the applicant or the new agent find out where they were in the portal process? That's a really great question. I would encourage you to check in with the consultant who didn't complete your application. We had a consultant that had a number of applicants and they didn't complete their portal application. In some cases, they just didn't enter any final submission. And then in other cases, this one consultant uploaded blank pages so that they could submit applications to us, but 90% of the application was blank pages. If you had to create a new user account and you want us to transfer over files, we can do that. But the problem is that you can't open the files and see what was submitted on your behalf. So I really think it's crucially important if you're changing consultants to get or acquire all of the materials that the previous consultant developed on your behalf for your application. You want to get all those materials from that consultant. And then I would say complete any materials that aren't completed and utilize any completed materials for your uploads into the portal. Because you can't view files that were uploaded in the portal, there's no real way for us to transfer materials over for a new account user to see what was previously uploaded. You really would have to ask the consultant about it. You could do a PRA and request all of your application information, or do a PRA and request what was submitted into the portal. That would be another way to get the information, and then we could move the files that were submitted onto the online PRA system for you to review. That would be another option. Yes, withdrawals and notice of application stay, denials, non-cultivation, voids, sunsets. Those are all listed on the portal as ineligible. So if you are an applicant, say, who was assigned to the portal but then withdrew your application, we then posted ineligible for the portal on the portal sheet that we posted on the website. So yes, notice of application stay, withdrawals, denials, voids, cancellations, those would all appear as ineligible if the status had changed from being assigned to the portal to a notice of application stay, withdrawal, or a void. Those will appear as ineligible for sure. Okay, we have some more questions here. So MCD can make human error, but applicants submitting in the portal don't get the same kind of grace for human error. Applicants submitting through the portal do get a lot of opportunity to correct human error. The portal was open for 90 days and the MCD staff presented checklists about deficiencies. So there's been a robust 90-day timeline for folks to submit and resubmit and submit and resubmit. And now we're dealing with a corrections portal. So there has been a lot of opportunity to make corrections. We're moving into this corrections portal. It's a little different platform, but it is what we're going to move forward with. So a question about seeing the speaker. I really think that that's in your settings. I can't speak to how someone's phone or tablet works, but often what you're seeing on your screen has to do with your individual settings. It's not a setting feature that we can manage. So I would encourage folks, if they're having a hard time viewing the screen or seeing what aspect of the meeting information they want to see, whether it's the speaker or the slides that are being presented, to play with your features. Those features are probably going to be in this. Let's see, my screen is a little different than what other folks' screens are going to look like. So I generally have a view box where I can choose how my view looks. I imagine folks should have a similar setting in their toolbar. So I would check your toolbar and see if you can change your settings. What does it mean if your permit number is not listed on the portal list? It might mean that you have an issued permit. So permit numbers that were not assigned to the portal, because really the portal was about applications and not issued permits, they don't appear on that portal list. If you have questions, you're not sure whether or not you should be in the portal or not, you can email cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org. But if you have an annual permit issued, you're not going to be on that list unless your annual permit is so recent that it was just issued. So you had an in good standing status previously, and then we issued you a permit over the last few months, then it may say issued and be on that list. But we didn't put everyone that was issued on the list. What we did with the current portal recommendation list is we updated the old portal recommendation list from July. And so that original list did not include issued permits. So I'm assuming and I'm hoping that the attendee who asked the question about what to do if or what it might mean if their permit number is not listed, I'm hoping that you have an annual permit and that's why. But if you have questions, you can email us your AG number to cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org and we can let you know what the status is of your application or permit if you need to know that information. Why does the department have allowances for internal errors but does not provide the same allowance for applicants? Well, actually we do. So applicants had 90 days to submit application materials through the portal. We stopped working on everything other than the portal during those 90 days and did nothing but portal reviews and got corrections checklists back out to applicants so they could make those corrections. So I don't know what to say, right? We were told and directed by the board to deny applicants who didn't complete the portal or their applications during that 90-day period. We were then directed by the board to allow for one more round of corrections, and that's what we're doing. So, and we have been responding to folks who have questions about human error. So when people have received their checklists and they are like, we don't agree with what the status is of this deficiency, or we have questions, we have responded to those questions. We've re-reviewed applications in some cases where there's been human error, or in cases where there's been human error made by a planner, we have adjusted the deficiency, turned deficiencies into accepted materials in some cases, and reposted the checklist back to the applicant. So the department absolutely has accounted for human error of the department, and we've made plenty of time available for applicants to work through the portal process. So we put all hands on deck for the portal and didn't review any other materials. So again, I'm not wanting to answer that same question anymore. Just putting that out there. I'm not understanding this next question, so I'm going to read the question, and then maybe if you want to ask the question again by asking it verbally, that might be helpful. How can someone get permission if they haven't had a review to begin with? I don't understand the question. So caller, if you want to add to that question, you can retype it or you can raise your hand. Do you have to get MCD approval to add or relocate a water tank? I would say no, not necessarily, but you would need to update your site plan if that to show the relocation or the addition of water tanks. You'd have to update your structures list if you add water tanks so that we know that there's additional water tanks associated with the cultivation site. Answer that. The state will not review an application without your notification to them that you have been approved at a county level. How can that be coordinated more efficiently? The state has a robust list of all of our applicants and where they are in the review status. So if you're in good standing, that list says good standing. If you have completed your application through the portal, it says that the application has been completed through the portal. If you are ineligible for some reason for the portal, it says that you're ineligible for the portal. When the state has questions about what's on that list and or the weekly list that we send them with the entire application and permit pool status, they email me directly. So it's about as efficient as it's going to get. We have provided them, as I mentioned, a spreadsheet with all of the portal participants' statuses, and we will be updating that spreadsheet as necessary. Okay, we have a few callers that have been waiting patiently with their hand raised. There are callers who have already called in, but we're going to go back through and hear from them quickly before we go back to questions that have come in through the chat. We'll hear from Brandy Moulton, followed by Michael Katz. Brandy, you should be able to unmute your device and go ahead and start your comment.
Thank you. I just was wondering what the basis is for planners asking for documents that are not on the checklist. For example, like property deeds and stock certificates to prove that someone is involved with a corporation, things of that nature. So, why are red check marks being placed next to items or documents that were not required?
Yeah, so I can speak to deeds. And so specifically, there are occasions when we will ask for a deed because we'll receive, say, a property owner consent form, but the person signing that property owner consent form as the property owner doesn't match the person listed in the county system as the property owner. So sometimes what needs to happen then is a deed needs to be presented to the department so that we can verify who the property owner is. So we know whether or not a property owner consent form needs to be submitted. So, and then in the case where there's multiple property owners, the system that we have access to review who the property owner is only lists one of those property owners. So we have a number of instances where we've rejected the property owner consent form because owner 3 of 4 signs the property owner consent form, but the only owner we see in our system is property owner 1. So then when we deny the property owner consent form because it doesn't match, the name on the property owner consent form doesn't match the property owner name that appears in our system, the applicant will be like, well, what the heck? Or the property owner might be like, what the heck? And I'm like, okay, well, just send us the deed that shows that you're the owner, and then we can verify that you have the right to sign that property owner consent form. So there are a number of instances where that has occurred because we need to be able to verify who is eligible to sign for the property owner consent form. The other situation where we might ask for a deed is where the property has changed hands and the applicant now owns the property, right? So some applicants have been able to purchase their property that they've been cultivating or living on while their application has been in process. It takes our system a long time to update the ownership on properties. So if we can't see that change has occurred, we do ask for a deed so that we know that we no longer need to acquire a property owner consent form from that individual. The business formation documents, folks are required to have a valid seller's permit in order to sell the cannabis that they have cultivated. When we receive a seller's permit and it's not in the name of the applicant, we are looking for business formation documents to ensure that seller's permit is actually tied to the applicant. And so this is why we then ask for business formation documents. Business formation documents that are just signed by an attorney that don't have any reference to the applicant. We then might ask for a statement of information update or some form of informational document showing the connection between the applicant and the company name or the name on that seller's permit. So while that level of detail and minutia is not spelled out specifically in the ordinance, a seller's permit is required. And then in order to verify that the seller's permit is associated with the site or the operation for the application, we need the follow-up document so that we can ensure that it actually qualifies to fulfill the requirement for a seller's permit. So there are those answers. We'll go to Michael Katz and then to Julia next. Michael, you should be able to unmute and start your comment.
Yes, thanks, Kristen. So a bunch of those things that you just mentioned sound like they were being reviewed for content and not completion, which I was under the impression that this process is just to make sure that everything has been submitted and then they're going to be re-reviewed by the planners afterwards. So I'm not 100% sure why that type of deficiency would be identified at this time. Also, there are more stories that I've heard about people who had green checks next to things that after multiple reviews, later on, a different planner made those into red marks and that required updating. And so, there really is been this incredible confusion back and forth, people thinking that certain things are acceptable and then finding out that they're not. We also heard from William last week that the average response time from the department right now to emails is between 7 and 10 days. And so earlier you mentioned that we are not in a perpetual application process, but you also mentioned that 4 years ago, permits were granted without the appropriate review. And so we are kind of in a perpetual application process. And what I'm wondering is, the board, as I mentioned before, has directed to help people who are trying to get through. I believe that people who are trying to get through and making submissions, even if what they're submitting isn't completely correct because there's some confusion, those folks should still be allowed to go back and forth. And the board did not specifically direct that this 30-day period should be one where folks were able to only submit once, and then that would determine their fate for the entire program moving forward. That seems to be a restriction that you have chosen to put on this. And so I'm wondering, do you have any intention to go back to the board and let them know about all of these challenges and the fact that we do actually would need more time to ensure that their direction is of enabling everyone to get through?
Okay, that was time. The board is well aware of the portal situation. We have a portal ad hoc committee. We've been communicating with the portal ad hoc committee. The portal ad hoc committee is well aware of the plan for review of the corrections portal. It was discussed before we announced it to the public. And I don't plan on going back to the board and asking for additional time with the portal. Our next commenter will be Julia, followed by Chantal. Julia, you should be able to unmute your device and begin your comment.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm just circling back around on my one other question in hopes that maybe we can get a response. And thank you for those other responses to everybody's questions. Specifically, can you provide the specific process of the portal, not including timing, and from the date of submission to when the checklist is issued, what that process is? And then in regards to the timing of that process, is it possible to provide that type of timing to the general public once the portal is closed? Thank you.
Okay, so the specific process of portal submission to portal review, we will review portal submissions when the portal is closed, and we will be reviewing the portal submissions in the order they were submitted to the corrections portal. Every application that is submitted to the corrections portal, just like the original portal, upon sealing that application and sending it to the department, it actually first goes to informational services, and then informational services sends it to us. But when you seal your submission to the portal, it stamps, it puts a timestamp, a date and a timestamp on that submission. So we receive the file with the AG number on it and the date and time that it was submitted. So we'll be reviewing corrections in the order they were submitted to the portal, and we will not start those reviews until after the portal closes. We're hoping to start those reviews on day one after the portal closes, but again, we are working diligently with our limited planning staff to get through renewals and some other pressing application materials that we have to get through. We need to get through. So hopefully we have staff available on day one to start working through the corrections that were submitted. But at this point, I don't know for sure that that will be the case. So I can't comment further on timelines. We have a number of repeat hands raised, but we still have 20 questions in the Q&A box. So I do want to see if we can get through some more of these questions. I have Hannah Nelson has her hand raised, who has not yet had an opportunity to comment. So Hannah, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk, and then we'll have to move forward with the meeting. You should be unmuted and you should be able to begin your comments.
Thank you. There are questions. One is, how are people in good standing going to be filtered into the timeline of reviews? And will there be an opportunity to submit additional small changes or corrections that are discovered in documents submitted through the portal? So for example, I have one instance where the wrong coordinates on a well was put on a well completion report. And so we're asking for a correction on the well completion report. And that's not a deficiency on the checklist. So we don't want to submit it in the portal, but we want to submit it later. Will there be an opportunity for that? And then finally, can you please review what the standards are and when the standards will be published for modification and when it's deemed a modification that requires a fee or not, as well as standards for the review of the items and what the determining factors are, and publish those, please. Thank you.
Okay, how are folks in good standing going to be filtered into reviews? Folks who are in good standing would be in front of folks who completed their applications through the portal for reviews when we get to that point. Minor updates to complete items that were submitted through the portal. If you have corrected materials that you can submit through the correction portal, I suggest submitting them. The corrections portal materials, when they come to us in a file, we're gathering all of the information in those correct application packets, so to speak, and then we'll be uploading them in an automated fashion into Trackit. So it's much easier to get all of the correct information into Trackit if it comes in through the portal. Folks with complete applications, we've been adding minor updates to those complete applications into your portal folder so that when we do those automated uploads, the proper information gets into the Trackit system. Modification standards, we are waiting from County Council to receive confirmation or not as to whether or not modification fees can be applied to applicants. Part of the reason why we don't have the website and the information up fully, and County Council has been pretty bogged, so we haven't been able to move those responses back to us yet. We additionally have sent out a couple of weeks ago the modification application form, waiting for County Council's response on the language around the signature, consent to inspect, so on and so forth. So as soon as we receive those documents back from County Council and the information we need, we will put the page up. The page is actually written. It is just hidden, so you can't see it right now. So we're ready to press publish. We just need the final confirmation on that. The form itself that we put together, the application form for the modifications, has all of the information on it about what triggers a modification, and then depending on the type of modification, what documentation would need to be provided. The big ones would be the change of a permit type, the change of a permit size, the reconfiguration of your permit site, addition of or new water sources would also trigger modification, but that is very much so clarified in the materials that we have out for review and that we are ready to publish as soon as we have a response from those materials. So at this time, we have a number of questions that are still open in the Q&A feature, but we only have 10 minutes left in the meeting. So I feel like we, in all fairness, should go to the next agenda item, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. I would ask folks to please do raise your hand if you would like to make public comment for items that are not on the agenda. So we have a few hands raised. They're all from folks who have already spoken. I'm going to go ahead and go through that list of folks with hands raised. For public comment for items not on the agenda, we'll hear from Michael Katz and then Chantal. So Michael, you should be able to go ahead and unmute your device and provide public comment on items not on the agenda. Or future agenda items, my apologies. Public comment for future agenda items.
Yes, thank you so much. Specifically, with regards to the equity program, we'd like to hear about if any additional funding has been provided and how the department plans to be able to allocate the funds by August, given the, all of the back and forth and the very slow timeline on reviewing applications, understanding there's about 200 and, if only 5 to 10 a week are being reviewed, how is that actually going to happen by August? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Chantal, followed by Julia. let's see here. Chantal, you should be able to unmute your device and provide future agenda items, please.
Great, thank you, Kristen. I put in a few more questions into the Q&A. If somebody from your very small department could please answer those, that would be great, as I wasn't able to answer them during the main content public comment section. My recommendations or requests for future agenda items is anything related to phase 3 and basically a monthly meeting regarding CEQA. That should be, I consider it to be significant and basically a scrolling agenda item that was constantly returned to. That's all. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Our next commenter is going to be Julia, followed by Corinne Powell. Julia, you should be able to unmute your device and provide future agenda items for consideration.
Thanks, Kristen. Well, I'm the mission statement cheerleader. Back in 2017, the Cannabis Department submitted and adopted a mission statement. And I'm hoping that the current Cannabis Department will work with the community and create a mission statement. And I agree with Chantal. Ongoing CEQA meetings are necessary for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Corinne Powell, followed by Hannah Nelson. Let's see here. I need to do a little bit of maintenance. My apologies. Corinne, you should be able to unmute your device and give us some suggestions for future agenda items, please.
Thank you, Kristen. I don't want to beat an ailing horse, but I too have concerns about our CEQA process. And a couple of meetings ago, I had asked if there was thought going into how an applicant who had already presented a CEQA Appendix G checklist with the help of a consultant, and for whatever reason, the consultant is no longer active or available to them for this process, how we might fold those applications into your proposed program handling the CEQA Appendix G requirements. Have you given that any further thought that you might help us plan?
I mean, I don't think that there's anything that the department's not going to stop you from making your own corrections. So if you have an Appendix G that you submitted that was written by a consultant and the department has corrections, you can do those corrections yourself. There's nothing in the department's guidelines, or there's no reason, I guess I should say, for the department to say, well, now you can't move your Appendix G forward because you don't have a consultant anymore, right? So I don't know that I'm necessarily fully understanding, but we have just a few minutes left. So we're gonna go back to future agenda items. We will hear from Hannah Nelson, followed by Michael Katz. So Hannah, you should be able to unmute your device and provide us with future agenda items.
Thanks. And I echo what Chantal said in terms of her items, particularly the ongoing CEQA and the phase 3. I also would like to add a topic of explicit standards for denials. And also last week, William said that he would try and get answers to a lot of the questions, since he was not a planner, that people had, and that they would be brought back this week or sometime soon. So if that could happen, as well as perhaps taking an opportunity to answer questions that were either privately answered in chats or not addressed in prior Q&As in a public forum, or publishing them would be great. I know that you're understaffed, so publishing might not be possible. So one way to do that is in a future public meeting. And then just briefly, my last question was about documents that needed to be changed, even though there was no red mark. And I understood that you had said to not submit documents that did not have a red mark in the checklist. And so my example about the change of coordinates or whatever, and that resulting in needing to change the site plan slightly with the correct coordinates or submit a new well completion report with the corrected thing from the well driller, had to do with the fact that it had a green checklist. So that's what that was about.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, the reason why we're suggesting that folks don't make changes that they don't need to make is because we've had a number of instances where folks make changes to documents that were correct, and then we no longer have the complete document. So for some reason, we open up a new submission and there's no longer a cultivation application. I have 2 Colton ops plans, right? So there's no reason for us to say don't do that, other than what we don't want folks to do is to eliminate documents that are needed for that application that have been determined to be complete, because for some reason file management has been a challenge, and we've had a number of documents just disappear, right? Where we had for previous submissions, the owner consent form came in, was complete 3 times, and then we get a 4th submission and there's 0 owner consent form in the file because it was removed by the applicant or the agent. So really, we want folks to exercise caution. Please don't remove documents unnecessarily. The packet is the packet. The application that's submitted through the portal is the application we're reviewing. So, if you need to make minor tweaks and you have more correct and current and accurate documents that a more accurate and current and correct site plan, please upload it, even if we accepted your previous site plan. But what we want to caution against is the loss of documents because for some reason or another, someone deletes something or they replace a document with an incorrect document. So, we're nervous about folks making those errors. And so we will, if all of a sudden we don't have your application and I have 2 cultivation and ops lists, we'll have to circle back with you during the review process to get those materials. But we also have folks who in the past, hence having the portal, and then a lot of folks who didn't even show up for the portal, ghost us or take incredibly long time to respond to us, which is why the board went to the portal to begin with. So please, if you are making any updates to documents with green checks, really make sure that you're managing your files correctly so that you do upload an application in the application spot. You do upload the right corrections or the right cultivation and operations plan, for example, in the cultivation and operations plan location. It's just been a challenging piece with the portal that folks change things that are complete and then suddenly we don't have the right documents to conduct a review. Our last caller today is Margro Advisors. So I'm going to go ahead and provide permission to make a comment, and you should be able to unmute your device and start your comment.
Thanks, Kristen. It's Kelly Flotos with Margro Advisors. I would recommend that you do a session, since people often make changes to their farm from season to season, that you do a session on modifications. What are the forms? What's the documentation? What is the timeline? How and when it will be reviewed? That whole thing. I think that would be really helpful for people. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so with that said, I think we can go ahead and adjourn today's meeting. I thank everyone for participating. We will be back at it next Friday. The portal does open on Monday, and we will talk to you all soon. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. Thanks, everyone.